Alright, so, fun fact, this Life of the Email is either the longest Life of the Email in Life of the Email history, or it's very close. It clocks out 11,400 words. So, I might die in reading this. But you know what? Gotta give your best shot. And as a result of that length, you get no intro. My intro is life. It's life. That's how that's it. Yep, that's all you get. After finishing the last Life of the Email, I was feeling energized, and so I beat up invisible blocks with lightsabers, and it was great. A good hour Beat Saber before bed really is a pretty good workout, I will say. I got back to my morning routine the next day, and for a reason I do not know, and still don't know, I had a headache basically the whole day. And perhaps as a consequence thereof, also felt super mentally tired as well. And man, I really do not envy people with migraines, especially if they have them often. Like, yeesh, how do they function? However, despite my headache, I did manage to get some homework done. So there's that. Then at Ratio, because I already finished my homework, I wasted my time playing dumb Flash games from my childhood. See, my thesis is that nostalgia is a bigger factor in making a game enjoyable and good than actual, like, good-making properties of the game, like graphics or mechanics and stuff. Because I genuinely enjoy those dumb Flash games disproportionately to their objective quality. Like, some of them are garbage, but I just really like them. Nevertheless, I did listen to the whole Ratio presentation, and, it didn't take a lot of concentration. But, to be fair, I was playing Fancy Pants, and Fancy Pants does not take much brain power. So, yeah, the presentation was okay. Noah brought in some decently smart Mormon speakers, but it kind of just felt like we as a collective like tossed them into the fire, then poked them with a bunch of sharp sticks. Like we're just like stabby, stab, stab, stab. Because the conversation was very pointed at times. I get what I did there. And there was a lot of like gotcha questions rather than actual questions. And I've really grown to have a strong aversion to that kind of like debate-winning rhetorical aggro conversation moves, which I used to engage in often, which is the kind of ironic part. I don't know, it just really leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Anyway, once that was done, I was uncharacteristically tired, and I had a headache, so I figured I must be coming down with some sort of sickness, and thus I excused myself from the event. And once I got home, I took a bath and watched some anime, which is my usual, sickness practice. Which apparently worked, because the next day I was fine. Yep, I felt great the next day. I wasn't sick, so I don't really know what was up with that. And since I rose on the Tuesday, I, in accordance with my beautiful routine, went to the gym, only to discover, to my dismay, that the rock climbing was closed for remodeling until like the end of break. It still isn't open. It's lame. This is like from a month ago. It's still closed. So yeah, that super sucked. And I guess that I just would run for exercise, which I did do. Nevertheless, I did get a tiny bit of rock climbing in at the pool because they had this little tiny wall next to the water. And surprisingly, climbing on that wore me way out. It wore me out way more than like normal rock climbing. I don't know why that was. However, I then did quiet time, and I went to my ECE class and got my second midterm back, only to discover I actually bombed it. I got a 57, which is utter garbage. And don't get me wrong, I didn't walk away from that test being like, I got an A. But I definitely thought it was likely I got a B, and there was no way I got below a C. So to get a literal F, when I was so confident I would at least get a C, was quite disheartening, not gonna lie. ECE has totally thrown me for a loop this semester. Like, I don't feel confused. It just seems to me like I understand everything, but then, given my test scores, I clearly don't. So I suppose you know you're really confused when you don't know you're confused. The first step to knowing that you don't know is to know that you don't know that you don't know that you don't know. And I didn't even know that. See the feeling you just got here in that sentence? That's how I felt getting a 57 back on my test. Now you understand. So yeah, upon receiving the second midterm, my grade was barely clinging to a D, and while a D is technically passing, that would tank my GPA, and I don't want to go down history like that, so I've decided I'm going to retake the classes upcoming semester. And it turns out that over the course of my CSU education, I get 3 repeat-delete credits, which basically means what it sounds like. You repeat it, and then if you, whatever your new score is, that supervenes on the old score. So hopefully I'll ace the class this upcoming semester, and then I can pretend like it never happened. But until then, my GPA has been absolutely nuked and killed all my hopes and dreams of getting an internship, which is really sad. However, thankfully, I should not lose my scholarships because they do only check for those once every year, not every semester. So as long as I get my GPA back above a 3.0 by the time, the end of the fall semester or spring semester rolls around, then I should be good. Anyway, yeah, that was a big bummer. I kind of also wrecked my plan for, a nice chill semester this upcoming semester because I was like, I had this nice gap for quiet time, but then I had to shove ECE in there because now I have to retake it. And, it's an extra 3 credits, so that could be hard. But hey, at least I had margins so I could make it work, right? Like, if I'd already packed out my semester, then I had to, try and overload my semester. That'd be crazy. So, yeah, I might need to, kick up next semester, into year, just be okay, we're ramping. But what can I do? I just have to face that and get there when I get there. So yeah, all that happened, and then it worked. I found this cool audiobook app called Libby, when it's basically Audible but for free because it uses the library system to get you audiobooks. And ironically, the CSU library, despite being actually massive, only gave me access to like 21 books. So that was kind of surprising. Sorry, I need a drink. Anyway, I did, however, get into the Poodle library system, and they gave me like way more options, so that was cool. I then started listening to C.S. Lewis's Space Trilogy while I run, because it makes things go by a lot faster, and because William swears that by listening to them, it will cure cancer, increase your Chad rating by 17%, and help you grow an illustrious beard. And I figured, given those promises, it was worth a shot. So, I mean, at this point, I'm not terribly impressed. I've got through almost the first book, and it's not bad, but I still can't grow facial hair, so I'm dubious if it's all as crap could be. Regardless, it's helped me pass the time on some arduous runs, if nothing else, so it's probably worth it for that. Anyway, after discovering Libby was great, you should get it if you don't have it, I then went to math class and went on a run at the CSU gym, and then I hung with Benj and Noah, without Joe, and it was decent. We played a bunch of a .io game I used to play with Ben, called ZomsRoyale.io or something like that, and it's basically like a really dumbed down Fortnite, and that wasn't bad. But then Noah introduced us to some Minecraft servers he used to play on, and I was actually in love with those. It was very fun. And then, of course, I went home, watched some Majesty Reason videos, and, I decided to tackle Majesty Reason with renewed effort, and just so happened, after watching Majesty Reason videos, to then make the chainmail pattern I was trying to replicate ages ago. So, remember how back on, 3 separate occasions, I tried to replicate this cool chainmail pattern I've been, trying to make? Well, it turns out I couldn't replicate it, because I made it up! And so, I was spending, a ton of time, 7 hours, trying to make the pattern, and I was eventually I can't do this. I'm just gonna go back to a normal Byzantine chain weave. But then, as I was watching the video of how to do the Byzantine chain weave, I just so happened to make the same mistake I had made originally, and therefore accidentally made my made-up weave again. So it was simultaneously really frustrating and fantastic. I hope I don't forget that pattern again. I don't think I will. Let's see. In other news, I had quiet time with the Jameses the next morning, because I had dog-sitting duties, and I had to attend to them. And my thought was, well, I'm already over here, so I might as well, raid the Jameses' freezer and have quiet time here. And they went well. It's good to know that I can have quiet time in other places than just my house, because honestly, I was kind of concerned that the routine would just, stick to my house like glue, but really, wherever I have the music, it makes it pretty easy. I don't even need the music. I did one without music, and it was still fine. I then headed over to school and did all the goodie bags of associated activities at the school. I then went to Neo's house for the standard Wednesday night hangout, and I really enjoyed that time. Possibly just because I get to, stuff myself with raspberries and croissants, and, just watch Clone Wars, so it's super relaxing. But regardless, I do really enjoy that time. And Clone Wars is getting pretty good. At this point, when I was writing this, it was, not bad, because I got to Season 5. Before, it was garbage, I would tell you before. Ugh. Yeah. But yeah, that was good. I then went over to the Jameses to do dog things, and then I went to Magic Club for some magic before I went home and went to sleep. The next morning, I went to the Jameses to do dog stuff, because that was my task and what was assigned unto me. And then I had a quiet time of service, aka I didn't do quiet time, I did service. So I put dishes and stuff away. I then went on a run before going to class, and then I did some coding once I was at work, and that was really dumb and frustrating. After that, I did some voice training with Sydney, where we decided to work on my weak point in my range via villager. Oh, I can't do it. Whatever it is, right? Sydney was trying to explain how to make a certain sound, and the only thing that worked for me was when she started going, "Do the villager and then I could make the right sound with the right note. It was it was very funny. Anyway, I did get my diaphragm breathing down pretty well, so that was good. I then assisted Grace with math as I ate food once I got home, and after that I returned to Hip Hop Dance Club despite my previous shaming, and it was good. The song was definitely a sketch one, but such is life. Once I got done with that, I took care of more dog stuff for the Jameses, and then I rounded out the night with some Majesty Reason videos and making chainmail. The next day was the usual. I got home, I did some chainmail while listening to the Free Will show, and then I went to talk with Rosemary, of all people, which was actually pretty great. Kind of funny, because we started the planning of the planning phase back in October, so it took an age, but we did finally actually meet up. Basically, she was like, "Yo, I want to hear about your trip, my broski," and I was like, "Chill, dog. You want to throw hands at Chipotle?" And so we met up and things went down. She was surprised to hear about the changes post-trip, and justifiably so. I will say that being used to Alex 2.0 at this point, I was kind of surprised that she was surprised. But, I guess that's just to be expected. When I had become Alex 2.0, it seemed, very natural that people were like, "Whoa." And in fact, I was kind of "Whoa" with myself. But at this point, saying things like, "I went to Hip Hop Dance Club," just sound normal and don't sound strange. But they clearly did sound very strange to Rosemary. So yeah, I don't know, it's kind of cool to get a new perspective on the whole thing. Be like, "Oh yeah, I really have changed." Or at least this person thinks I have. So yeah, we talked. I caught up on her life some, but it doesn't seem like much has changed for her. Save the creation of their trash house. And by that, I don't mean it's trash. I mean, I do mean it's trash, but not in the sense you're probably thinking of. The tiny home is, like, actually made of trash. Or at least mostly. They bought, like, a brand new roof or whatever. But otherwise, it's, like, from discarded sources of wood, and there's, like, actual trash for insulation. So, yeah. Haven't got to see that, but that sounds pretty cool. So, that catch-up was good. A tiny bit awkward, but, you know, pretty great overall. And once that ended, I went home. And I worked through some more Majesty of Reason stuff, and did some more chainmail. Then I rounded the night with some anime, because anime is bueno. The next morning, I did quiet time with some Majesty of Reason analysis. I then followed that up with some food and some anime before doing more Majesty of Reason analysis and then going on a run and receiving my friend Sydney's letter. And I'm not going to lie, I think that we should send more letters like those. Like, letters that tell people, like, just how much you mean to them, that you're significant and stuff. Like, it was just a fantastic letter. And just receiving that, just, like, heart fire warming, I don't know, fuzzy vibes. So, yeah, and it can't be an email, by the way. It has to be a letter. The fact that it's a physical letter makes a difference. I should, like, found a Violet Evergarden letter club, where the purpose is just to get everyone to send a heartfelt letter to someone they know. Anyway, it was great to receive that. I actually loved it. Although it was really sad because she had put this wax seal on it with a Violet Evergarden stamp, but unfortunately, it was lost in the mail. So, yeah, that was sad. However, it is really cool that Sydney likes Violet Evergarden as much as I do. And I don't know about the rest of you, but you should recognize its magnificence. After I read the letter, I sent Sydney a quick, like, thank you response before heading off to the Stankies for dinner, because they were hosting a thing. And it just so happened that upon my way there, I was tailed by a cop for, like, a long ways. Although I didn't know that, I was just like, these headlights look suspiciously cop-like. And so I played it safe, and I'm really glad I did, because they were. I have, like, a cop headlight sense at this point in time. But man, like, cops do tail you. Like, it's like they're trying to make you speed with car peer pressure. It's like, you go faster, I'm gonna bump into you, and you're like, no! But then you just don't, because you realize those are cop headlights, and you know what cop headlights look like. Anyway, I made it to the Stankies without a ticket, which was great, and then we ate dinner and played a game of Ticket to Ride, which was okay. I got schooled by Benj, which I don't like losing to Benj in anything. But at least the game gave us something to do, so it was a net, so-so. Once that ended, I got home and got on a call with Liam, and we just kind of talked. Katie has missed a lot of our Minecraft calls as of late, so that's been really sad. I then responded to Sydney in more depth, the Sydney that sent me a letter, and tried to find a good song for mini AMV I planned to make, which was actually kind of hard. The next morning, I let the dog out at the Jameses, and the whole encounter threw off my groove. I was like, oh, my morning routine has been jettisoned. I then went grocery shopping, and then I got home and watched some anime before eating some of my newly purchased food. And then I went over to the Jameses to let the dog out before coming back home to work with Dad on the short AMV I made. And basically, he just taught me the basics of editing, and I like put this together. And I have a link in my doc, but you can't see it because links are not audio. And it's like super short, although it took me like 3 hours, and it's pretty anticlimactic. But it's my first thing, so I'm decently happy with it. Although one clip I put in there, you could see the scroll bar from my screen recording. I didn't notice that until I finished it, so that's kind of funny. I was like, oh man, I keep bumping my mouse at this exact point. It was kind of ironic. So yeah, that was good. Dad was like a little bit overbearing at times, but overall I'd say he taught me pretty well. I finished that just in time for dinner, and then I helped Grace with her math homework. After that, Mom and I finished watching Dune, which was actually pretty cool. It looked really interesting, but it was kind of slow. Still good, but just slow. And then after that, Noah and Ben spontaneously generated themselves at my house. So that was a surprise, but we couldn't think of what to do, so we kind of just watched a dream video. And since Noah had never seen one of those before, it was cool. After that, I then headed home and went to sleep. Wait, after that, they then headed home, and then I went to sleep because I was already at home. I then did morning dog duties with James once more and had quiet time there. I then went to my classes, did some more coding work, and then got a bit of math torture. That was painful. Once class let out, I did some dog stuff again, did more food and anime, and then I did some more Majesty of Reason analyzing of James while doing chainmail work. And once I got home, I helped Grace with her math once more, and then round out my day with some anime before we sleep. Finally, I don't know why I said finally. I think it was probably because I wrote this in like 5 stages. It's so long. So that was probably, it doesn't matter. The next day, I got to have okay, the finally is supposed to be there. It has nothing to do with when I wrote this. Finally, the next day I got to have a fully interrupted normal routine in the morning, and it was gorgeous. I then decided to skip my ECE class for math tutoring, which made sense, because, at that point I decided to take the L and just, make up for it with my other classes, getting good grades. And I then had to work. After which went to math class. By the way, that 100% paid off. I totally respect my own decision. Because I ended up getting a B in math, a effectively plus. It's just the 4.0 in Mech 105, and then a minus in statics. Because of this, we're just going to yeet ECE and just dump it in the trash strategy. So that worked out really well. Except for, the ECE part where I got an F. So, that part didn't work out so well. We don't talk about that part. Anyway, I went to math class and I paid like super close attention for like the first time in math class, and everything kind of clicked for me, which was a very cool feeling. It also made me realize that if I paid close attention and didn't like pay half attention, I would probably be a straight A student. But let's be honest, I'm way too lazy for that because that's so much work. So yeah, I haven't done that since. But anyway, well, I did do it since, but I'm not going to make them my norm because it's so much work. I then attended a Baja building meeting, and we had this like graduated Mechie talk to us for like an hour and a half. And apparently, what he was saying was very interesting because like that time went by very quickly. After that, I stopped briefly at home for some food, since the usual Tuesday night package was disfigured, aka did not feature food. And then I went over to Joe's and played Magic with him and Ben into the night. Joe was super sleep deprived at this point, by the way, because his family just got back from Argentina. The next day, my brain was on hypertension mode all day, which was very difficult, but very effective. Once I got all that done, I went over to Neo's and got through Season 6 of Clone Wars. I then bought giant croissants, which I ate way too many of. You'd be surprised at how many croissants I could fit within me. I really like croissants. And then I joined John at Magic Club and had a few games. And that was the day. Thursday, I did my math tutoring during my ECE time slot, and I felt like I was doing pretty well with math. I then tried to fix this dumb code, but it wouldn't work, and it was very vexing. After working on that for like 2.5 hours, I then drove to Southgate and attended Zach's wedding reception, which was odd because his bride couldn't speak English, but all good overall. Not much happened there. I mostly just talked to Noah about Flossie stuff. I then went home and chilled for a bit and helped Grace learn math once more, which was becoming a very common occurrence. And then Sam, Seth, Ben, Noah, and Joe and I all met up at Joe's house. The plan was to play Minecraft together, but the problem was Joe's Xbox fizzled. So instead, Ben, Seth, and Sam played Minecraft on the available computers, while Joe, Noah, and I played Magic. However, once it all ended, Joe and I just kind of talked for a bit, and I got to hear about his trip to Argentina, which was definitely mildly interesting. Friday, I got a later than usual start to school since my professor had a science infection. I kept trying to get my code to work for my final project since it was the last day I could turn it in, but for some reason the grading system did not like me. That was such a pain. Oh my gosh, it was horrible. It's the worst when you're like, it's right. It gives you the right answer. It's correct, but the grading system tells you it's wrong. That test was messed up. Anyway, I had to turn in the homework incomplete, and I got full credit for the thing once he looked at the code and he was like, yeah, that's right. But the problem is I spent like 5 hours trying to figure out how to make the grading system tell me it was right. Such a pain. Anyway, yep, after that, I did the big things at the math class and found my testing locations for the midterms, the finals, which was very good. I did that because one of the rooms took me like 15 minutes to find. So if I had not done that, I would have been like late to my test. And then I basically spent the rest of the day just hooked on this really good anime about Japanese spies. And I will confess, anime watching may have not been my best use of my time, but you know what? Such is life. I can't always be maximally efficient. I did, however, back up my thumb drives while I watched the anime, so it wasn't all pointless. The following day, I did quiet time. I did like 6 hours of study of math and statics. So with a few breaks. But yeah, I feel like I made up for all my laziness the day prior because that was a ton of work. And then I just kind of hung out with Grace before talking to Liam, and then finally beating him in an anime quiz. I think we need to dwell on that for just a moment. Let's pause. Reverent silence. That's enough silence. So, Liam, King of the Weebs, was finally bested in an anime quiz by yours truly. I know. You are all so proud of me. It was a truly glorious day. Finally, to round out that day, I watched Man with Grace. And that's it. Yeah. The next day, I did not get much sleep, so I missed, that night, I don't know. So I missed part of the church service, but I did come to the lunchbox thing, so I got to play Magic with everyone. I was from there straight to D&D, which was at Neo and Sydney's, and I made it there on time, however, no one else did. Everyone else was like 20 minutes late, so that was kind of sad. Nevertheless, it was a good final session. It lasted until like 11 at night, so really long, given it usually only lasts like 5:30. But we all did survive, barely, and we did beat the final boss. Overall, I would say it was a pretty decent campaign. I don't think it was as good as John Sharn campaign, but regardless, I got to play a very boisterous hedonist, so that makes the campaign very fun in and of itself. And see, in this campaign, I didn't min-max my character, so that meant, like, the big thing was roleplay, which I was kind of mad at for combat, so I really just kind of leaned into the roleplay. But I'm glad I did. It definitely made it more fun. I'll probably doing that in all the future campaigns, have a good roleplay character. But yeah, with that session, Quinrell Arcanus is gone, but his memory will live on in our hearts. Anyway, I didn't get much sleep the next day because I didn't actually fall asleep until 1:30, or, something like that. And then I had to get up at 5:30 the next day for the calc exam. And may I just say, whoever thought, what's a really good idea? Let's have all our students take their calc exam at 7:30 in the morning. Like, you're wrong. That was a very bad idea. Who thought of that? But regardless, I had to do that. So I, while tired, did manage to take the calc exam. And it turns out I aced it. I got a 96, baby. Woo! Boom. So yeah, not gonna lie, I felt pretty great, especially because, I started off the semester with a 64. So my grade at the end of it was a B, which I'm still super salty about, because my midterm grades, which is all the grades, like you don't get grades for homework, you don't get participation, it's literally just your midterm tests, was a 64, a 93, a 94, and a 96. Which means that 64 did all the work of keeping me from getting into an A. So I'm salty. But regardless, my brain was dead, as one might expect, after a large Calculus 3 math test. And so I went home and watched anime until I went to work. And then I just worked on this, because I didn't have any homework to do, since it was midterms, at work. And then once my shift ended, I came home and ate some food before taking my statics exam. And I did well in that, actually. I got like a 94. So that was good. After that, I was chilling at home and decided to hit up Joe, so he came over, and we got to play some Magic and let him taste the greatness of the Wendy's pretzel burger. Oh my gosh. Fantastic burger. And yeah, we just kind of talked till near midnight, and that's how that went. Tuesday, I woke up, did some quiet time, then watched anime till I went to my mech exam. Review, not my mech exam. However, the review ran late, so I stayed until the last possible moment, which I'm very glad I did, because it helped me get a good grade on the test. But I rode very quickly to work. Definitely the fastest I've rode to work. And it probably wasn't necessary that I exerted myself so, but, I make it a good policy to be on time for your shifts, or at least minimize the lateness in which you are after your shifts. At this point, I was feeling pretty ready for the semester to end, so I had a hard time studying, but I did sort of study. I then did a bunch of random things, like clean up my laptop, my reusable notebooks and stuff, and after that, it was Tuesday. Oh, false. After that, since it was Tuesday, I went over to Joe's house to do Tuesday night things. We played some Magic, ended up watching White Christmas, which apparently I'd seen part of over Mom and Dad's shoulder, but got bored, so I actually finished it. And now I've seen the whole movie. And it was honestly meh. Hence why I got bored before. But you know what? Old movies be like that. That's just how they be. We then watched Hexagons Are the Bestagons, which, while I do disagree with this conclusion, was far more enjoyable. The day thereafter, I had quiet time. I did more small things like update my drivers on my computer, and stuff like that. I then went to work, but did not work at work, which was nice. And then I spent a few hours checking out the newest songs from the artist select and adding to the Not That Bad playlist, which has now exceeded 1,000 songs. And yeah, then I had my 105 mech final, and I got a 92, so I'm pretty happy with that. And once I got back from doing that, I then ate food and watched some anime, and then went over to John's house for where, originally Neo, Drake, Braden, John, Maddie, and I were going to play Magic, but it ended up being that Neo dipped since he had a final paper to write. And so that's how the night ended, us playing Magic, without Neo. The next morning I went to run on the treadmill, but I didn't finish. I think I bit off more than I can chew, which was kind of vexing because I always finish my runs. And then I went home and I had some quiet time, but I just journaled. I didn't read any Suma. After that, I watched some anime and ate. Did work, during which I worked on this live demo. And then once I got home, I curated my 1,000 plus It's Not That Bad playlist into the It's Actually That Bad playlist, and it's the Not That Bad playlist, which has been a long time in coming. So yeah, I lost about 200 songs from the OG It's Not That Bad playlist, but I assure you they will not be missed. They were garbage. So, you might be wondering why I had 200-ish songs that I consider below tolerable on a playlist for 2+ years. And the answer is as follows. See, I figured out there are quite a few songs that when you first listen to them, you're like, yeah, no thanks. But if you keep listening to them, you're like, okay, you know what, alright. And then very occasionally, you're like, oh yeah! So, having observed this phenomena, I decided to put everything that could even be remotely considered music on my playlist, and then, wait until after, like, a certain date. And then those songs that would have had time to grow on me would stay, and the ones that were still bad after having time to grow on me would get weeded out. Thus, all this long, winded stuff is about, nope. All this is a long-winded way of saying that upon getting home and having nothing to do, I was like, well, the weeding out time has arrived. And thus I weeded. And a new and improved It's Not That Bad playlist as a result, which is still like 800 songs long. After I finished that, I went to voice training with City, which was actually really good. And then we got Wendy's Burgers, which was great. Those burgers, man. I love them. And then Neo and I watched Clone Wars until about 10, and I proceeded to catch up with William Varley after that. The one and only William Varley, mind you. Finally, after talking with him, I went on a drive just to work some things out, and then I got home and went to sleep. The next morning, I had quiet time, did some Christmas shopping online, read through some SCP articles about divine publicity at work, which was kind of helpful because it gave me a new perspective on the issue. And then I ended up writing my thoughts down, kind of like a stream of consciousness paper, not like a well-worded one, just kind of like, well, if this is true, then this is true, and so forth. That process finished once I got home, because SCP articles are long. And then I ate Wendy's, particularly the God Burger, and watched some anime before leaving early to go to Alan's house, which is pretty ironic because I was the one that petitioned to go later. See, what happened is I was like, everyone was thinking of getting there at 6, and I was like, could we do 7 instead? And they were like, okay. And then in my mind, the time was still 6. So I hopped in my car and got 15 minutes underway, and then I realized, oh, it's 7 because I asked it to be 7. But yeah, I was just like, Alan, should I turn around or just come early? And he was like, you're an idiot, come early. But in a nice Alan way. Anyway, as a result, I got to Alan's house early, and we did some whiteboard farting. It was a tiny whiteboard, which, although pitiful in its essence, nevertheless was a whiteboard by technicality. Then Liam arrived and pseudo joined in the conversation, but the conversation was kind of not his area of expertise. And then we concluded that, and we played some games. I also did an anime quiz against Liam, Alan, Jesse, and myself. So, but Alan, Jesse got like 0, and Liam just won, which is frustrating. Then Liam headed home, and Alan and I talked about the whole church-choosing predicament until like 1 in the morning. See, as of late, Alan and I have kind of diverged in our pursuits, and with me trying to deal with totemism and Alan trying to fix the whole Catholic-Protestant issue. And that's helpful in one way, as in we cover more ground, but it's also like results in us needing to communicate and kind of like catch each other up. So yeah, that's why the combo lasted until 1. But yeah, once we wrapped up, I just kind of drove home and slept, because it was pretty late by then. The next morning, my day started at nearly noon, for obvious reasons. I didn't get sleep. I watched a Magic Reason video and then did some food stuff. After that, I went to Southgate to watch the Christmas play, which had been a reinstated tradition now that Naomi Jewell is back in town. And honestly, I didn't like it nearly as much as the last one. Maybe it's just because like the last one was the first one, and thus I had lower expectations. But I would give this play something like a 6 out of 10. It wasn't like bad, but it wasn't great. After that, I attended Neo's graduation party, since he has now officially graduated with his double major, woot woot, and the whole event was tolerable. Quite a lot of small talk, but that's alright. Once I got home from that, I finished the Magic Reason video I'd been working on earlier, and then I watched a bit of anime before sorting through most of my new 5,000 cards I ordered. So now I have 10,000, which was quite relaxing, because Joe joined me. That took like 4 hours or so. And we did decide to do a single game of Magic before calling that night. The next day consisted of church, Magic at church, a little bit of Brawl at Joe's house, because there was now no longer D&D on Sundays, and so Joe and I were thinking we could do some stuff that include Karina. Not that Brawl includes Karina. Why did we play Brawl? That doesn't actually make sense. Anyway, however, I wasn't able to stick around long because I had already agreed to go to John/Neo's graduation party at John's house. So after a few rounds of Brawl, I kind of dipped, and I was like, gotta go, peace out. Once I got there, Neo got Flower Knighted by John, as well as Sydney and Milo, which was a very interesting but endearing tradition. It's the graduates get knighted by the previous graduates. Saying things like, with the degree that cost me $35,000 and is of no use, I dub thee. Yeah, that's great. Anyway, we did basically Kahoot quizzes, but they weren't technically Kahoot quizzes. They were pertaining to, like, the quizzes were about stuff the graduates were, so like Neo's was philosophy and history, and John's was entomology or whatever. But the big distinction between Kahoot and this weird platform we did it on is you could steal each other's points, so it wasn't really a true just in dollars, because I didn't like it, because I'd be like, I'm winning, and then someone's just like, I stole your points, and now you have my points, and I was like, oh, now I'm losing. So yeah, after that we did a lot of Smash Bros, like 6 hours or something. Like, I got a headache, it was so much, but it was great. I very much enjoyed Smash Bros. Once I got home, I took a bath because, headache, and then I just went to sleep. The following morning was peaceful. I went on a run to Haunted for a gift card before going straight to Sydney's birthday party, which was, again, a lot of small talk. However, we did get to eat Panera, so that was really nice. Once I got back to Sydney's house, we then took multiple iterations of the Sydney quiz, which is a quiz Sydney made about herself. We were all playing Smash Bros. For 6 hours. And it was definitely more of a trivia-based quiz than an actually significant information-based quiz, but that was still mildly interesting. Turns out I did not know very much City trivia. However, I did not get dead last, so you know what? That's a perk. After that, there were some jackpot games and plenty of sweet items placed just within my grasp. But I resisted the temptation because I have an iron will. And so as that wound down. I then went over to Five Guys to meet Alan, and we just kind of caught up and ate some fries before going to CSU's campus with him, and we entered the Natural Resources Building to lay claim to their whiteboards. And upon doing so, we engaged in an epic rap battle but of intellects. Okay, I'm going to take a drink of water and try it again. An epic battle of intellects. There we go. Yep, that's the first try. Where we scrawled upon the whiteboards until no more whiteboard space remained. And really, the limiting factor was not whiteboard space, but rather Alan had to head home to take care of his children. So, yeah, whatever. But anyway, we got a good whiteboard fart in, and there are some pictures. And if you can decipher them, I will bestow upon you the honor of a crisp high five. And I know, I'm too generous. So, if you can figure out what we're talking about, crisp high five is for you. Think about that. Think of the power you could have. Anyway, that lasted until like a 10, and then after that, Joe and I met up once again to finish the magic card sorting, and then we fought our Pauper Ducks. Next morning, I ran, had a quiet time, and then I read an SCP article on retributive justice, and since Alan and I had a conversation about that, oh, that's giving away a hint to the earlier challenge. We did not, of course. And I came to realize I really do not understand retributive justice, especially after reading the SCP article. Basically, yeah, nothing changed. I don't understand anymore. I just understand less. Well, I understand that I understand less. So yeah, it's a bit of a big sad. After that, my brain was fried, so I started hanging with Joe, do some deck building. I ended up revising my existing decks, and not actually building any decks, but, I have a lot of decks, so that makes sense. However, after I finished doing that, I joined Joe and Benj in some Magic games using the revised decks, and that was good. Upon rising from my slumber, I read some Summa and wrote down in my prayer journal, as is my quiet time custom. I then watched a Majesty of Reason video before coming home to buy, before going to Home Depot to buy some wood, because I had a cool idea for this suitcase magic card holder. However, when I went to buy the wood, I, like a pure idiot, did not realize the wood was priced by the foot. So when the board had a price of $4, that did not mean the board was $4. Rather, it meant it was $4 per foot, a very significant distinction. Thus, when picking out the wood, I was like, look, I can get hickory for just $1.50 more. And I'm like, why would I not do that? But yeah, that was a mistake. So I went to the checkout, the lady rang up my wood, and I was like, oh no, that's so much more expensive than I wanted to, because $1.50 times 16 plus feet gets very expensive. However, due to a combination of social pressure and people waiting in line behind me, plus not wanting to publicly admit my stupidity, I was just like, yeah, I intended this much wood at this price. Here you go, here's my money. And yes, I know this only extends my idiocy, because, if I was a real man, I would just be like, I didn't mean this, I made a mistake. But I did not do that, so at least I'm honest about how I'm not cool. Thus, I walked away from the whole ordeal having paid significantly more for my wood than I was prepared to. But on the bright side, I have high-quality wood now. So yeah, I did that, and then I got home, and then I started my suitcase project only for it to drop at least 20 degrees in an hour. It got really cold really fast. And this is the whole cold spell that hit Colorado. You might remember it if you were here. If you were not here, then you would, of course, not remember it because you were not here. And you cannot make a callback to a reference you did not hear unless you're Dr. Schwartz. That is not relevant. Anyway, I was forced to abandon my suitcase project prematurely because I could not work on the wood since my hands were like, we don't work because it's cold. So yeah, that was a bummer. Thereafter, I played some Beat Saber before going to Neo's house and finishing the Clone Wars, and I will say, the Clone Wars did look epic by the end. But the way they ended it really didn't give me much closure. I don't know, I didn't feel like it ended climactically. However, regardless, having now watched the entirety of Clone Wars, I can officially give it a rating. And I would say it's about a 7 out of 10 show. If I was rating it the way I rate an anime, I would give it that. After that, we watched Episode 3, aka the third Star Wars movie, and it was garbage by comparison. The transition from cool Anakin to angsty Anakin was not a pleasant one. And we got through all that, and then it was 1 in the morning, so at that point I was like, let's call it a night. And Neo was like, okay, fine. And then after that, Neo and Sydney have done a bunch of things, have been to Israel and Nevada or something like that. I don't know. Many places, so I haven't hung out with them since. They'll be back 4 days from now or something like that. The day after that, I once again had quiet time in the morning. I watched a Majesty of Reason video, after which I did a mini clean of my room. I then spent the vast majority of the day listening to Pipes with Aquinas and building a metal card holding box of my suitcase contraption, which I think turned out pretty good. I was only able to make 16 with the mail I had on hand. However, that is enough to hold my 10,000 cards, so that's good. And after doing that for an untold number of hours, I then watched the Map of Tiny Perfect Things with Grace and Mom. And I actually really like that movie. It's evidently low budget, but it's a cool concept and pretty well executed in my opinion. It's a good low budget movie. After that, I responded to Majesty of Reason and once again called it a night. The following morning, I had quiet time. I picked up Brayden and hung out with him. And to my surprise, he actually called me out on not living up to my Alex 2.0 standards. I was kind of surprised. I didn't expect him to do that, but he mentioned and I was like, oh, I really appreciate that. I'm glad that you're willing to do that. I mean, optimally, I would like to live in such a way that my friends won't have to call me out. But it was good to know that if I am not living optimally, because I'm not perfect, then at least one of them would tell me I should fix that. So yeah, after that conversation, we just played Magic in the building beside the Morgan Library because it was cold and there was nothing else to open. And we got some good games in. It was a good time. I really do enjoy one-on-one Magic. It's very relaxing. We have conversations while you do it because the other person's experienced, and so you can just kind of play. It was just a really good time. Once I got home from that, I watched a meh movie with my family before attempting to build another Magic the Gathering Pauper deck, only to realize I did not have the cards to make the Pauper deck work, which kind of sucked because I figured I didn't have the cards. I looked through all the cards I had, which took a significant amount of time. So yeah, after realizing that wasn't going to work, I put the cards all away and watched an anime before going to sleep. The next day I skipped quiet time because I went ice skating with Grace instead, down at the CSU pond. And it was more like I cleared off snow and Grace ice skated, because I did try, I don't have ice skates, but I did try, keyword there, to ice skate with rollerblades. But that very much did not work. I fell 4 times and got a little bit of bruising. And in case you did not know, rollerblades do not work on ice. Words to the wise. However, the time was still okay. It wasn't great because I was just I'm clearing off snow, woo, or I'm falling on my butt because I'm rolling on rollerblades. But it wasn't garbage either. I think Grace had an okay time. Once I got back from that, Grandpa came over and he accepted my game, my offer of a game of chess, and I played him without a queen and a rook, and I did manage to take the victory, but it was very close. We then had Christmas dinner with a friend of Dad and Grandpa's who came over named George Ramaswamy, and I have no idea how to spell that. But regardless, he's Orthodox and actually asked a lot of big questions, ironically, that were not Orthodox. He was like, he's like, universalism is true. And I'm like, well, good sir, that could be the case. But I'm inclined to think you were wrong. And so it was a lot of interesting conversations. Not necessarily informative conversations, but very interesting. And it was probably the most engaged I've been in any family Christmas so far, so I count that as a win. He should come back. After dinner, we all went to Southgate Christmas Eve service, which I was apparently supposed to be dressed up for. I did not know that, so I did not do that. The Christmas was pretty normal, honestly, and we didn't get to keep the candles, so that was really sad. Once I got back home, I watched a pretty garbage Studio Ghibli movie, which I only watched because I didn't know it was Studio Ghibli. And then after that, I engaged in about an hour and a half of existential pondering about existence. I do not mean that sarcastically or ironically. It was actually the case that I did ponder existence. Although, to be fair, the badness of the movie made me question my will to live a little bit, and so that might have made me ponder my existence, but that was not the case. Basically, I'm trying to figure out change and if it's real, and so that brought me to think about existence for like an hour and a half. After that, my brain was depleted of its force, and so I was like, well, I might as well finish this garbage anime about vampires, and that still makes no sense to me. I would give you yet another how does this anime even make sense recap, but I'm afraid most of you don't care, so I'll pass. The next morning was Christmas, woot woot. For Christmas, Mom helped me buy a very new Oculus game called Moss, which is very, very well done. I mean, it's not replayable because it's like a story, but it was a very well-made game, and if it weren't for not being replayable, it would probably be my favorite VR game. We kind of dispersed presents throughout the day, which I thought was the best way to do it, because then you kind of get like excited in a little bursts of the day. And then Grandpa came over once again, and I played a game of chess with Dad without my rook, and to my surprise, Dad beat me. When Dad tries, he's a lot better at chess than I give him credit for. Anyway, at least an hour and a half after that game, because that game took ages. We watched some anime as a family, and then I played some more of my VR game and went to sleep. The day after Christmas, I did quiet time in the morning and finished out the prayer journal I had been keeping since the trip, so that journal is now closed. I am onto a new journal, which is kind of a monumental event. I then worked through an SCP article on change and wrote down my thoughts until my brain was tired, and thereafter I finished a very good VR game. I watched some anime with Grace after that. And she really liked the show we watched. It's called Bubble, and if you haven't seen it, you should see it. And at first I thought it was kind of meh, because the story made no sense to me, but watching it the second time, the story made total sense to me, and I was like, this is a good anime. So yeah, we finished that anime movie, and then I went over to Joe's and played Magic with him till late. However, the next day I woke up at 6 in order to get to Thompson Elementary in time for the hike with what has now been deemed the Miller Mountaineering Club. And while the early wake-up time was pretty painful, what was more painful was on the way to my spot, my oil pressure light came on, which I ignored because I was like, well, if I stop to see what's wrong with my car, I'll be late. So I hope there's no bad consequences for that. So yeah, that is when I at least noticed my car was leaking oil at a very significant rate. I then parked at Thompson and was like, I'll fix that later. And then I went on a hike. So thankfully, Mom bought me a wind-breaking jacket for Christmas because the wind on that hike was insane. Definitely the strongest wind I've ever seen. Like, strong enough that it could knock you over sideways. Like, you had to significantly stagger to stay upright. And, like, you could fall back at, like, a 25-degree angle and be held up. It was very crazy strong. But regardless, we are the Miller Mountaineering Club, which means we hiked through it anyway. And you couldn't see. I'm so glad I bought sunglasses. Not because it was bright, because, like, it was, like, getting struck with a bunch of needles in your face, the snow. Yep. Anyway, I would say that the hike would better be described as swimming through the snow. I mean, to be fair, there was a significant portion that was, like, on a road, so we didn't post hole the whole time through that. But after we left the road and we got on the trail, it was just waist-deep snow the whole way. Me, Cable, and Chris just post-holing every other step. It was a slog. And the worst part is I hadn't worn any waterproof pants or shoes, so very quickly my shoes, my shoes, well, that's true, my shoes and my pants got soaked. And they're just frozen. Just, like, yeah, it was all the way to my waist. It was bad. So, kind of ironically, the fact that I was really uncomfortable and could not feel my legs totally bumped me up. I think the reason for it is that for quite some time I've been, like, pursuing comfort in a lot of ways, but at this point in time I was like, I get to be uncomfortable. I mean, I kind of had to be uncomfortable because I couldn't, just walk before myself, but regardless, kind of like chose to enjoy my discomfort, and it was great. I don't know, perhaps it just made me feel alive or whatever, but regardless, being uncomfortable was almost the best part. However, I do say almost because the best part was definitely catching up with Molly and Cable. Their lives are really interesting, and just hearing what, they've done and how they've grown and stuff was really cool. So yeah, I appreciated both those conversations quite a lot. We didn't end up going all the way to the lake that we were planning to, since, like, after an hour or so of post-holing, at least, it was pretty clear everyone was like, this is not enjoyable. So Mrs. Miller was like, yeah, we should turn around. But we did make it pretty far, and I did deem the hike a success as a result. Once we got down from the hike, we drove to Estes, and as is hiking club tradition, ate at Nepali's. I gotta say that not having seen them all in ages, the group of people that is part of the Miller Mountaineering. That is part of the Miller Mountaineering Hiking Club. It's just such a unique and cool group of people. Like, we're all just sitting at the table. I don't know, like 10 of us, and not a single of us have like any social media accounts we're active on, at least for social media purposes. Like, how cool is that? What group of people do you know where everyone's like, yeah, I don't do social media? It was really interesting and really cool. And yeah, that was we just ate Indian food and it was good, and we just talked. Not a bad time. I'm really glad I'm part of that group. We then drove down back from Estes listening to worship music, and I dumped like 5 quarts, I don't think that's an exaggeration, of oil into my car before it was like, hey, you reached the normal level. So I was like, oh, I'm sure I did some engine damage running at that low level of oil. Yep. And I was just like, hope this doesn't all leak out before I get to the Miller's house, and so I drove there. At the Miller's house, I played some table tennis with a guy named Zach, who I met the first time on this hike, but he was pretty good. However, we couldn't have like a true test of skill because there's only one spin paddle. And then I got a Miller Mountaineering shirt, which I actually love this thing. Like, you wish you could see the picture. It's just best. It has my quote on it on the back, and really well designed. Plus, it was only $10, and it's like super soft. Overall, just probably my favorite shirt in terms of like objective value. Maybe not like content, but like objective value, like for softness, price, design, etc. Anyway, I ducked out of the whole event at 7 because I was tired. Nothing was really happening. So then I went home and took a bath and watched some anime, and then went to bed early because, I got up at an ungodly hour to go on the hike in the first place. The next day, the entire daylight hours were spent trying to fix my car and being like, well, gotta figure out what that leak is. And thankfully, it was just a gasket seal that blew, so it wasn't like something huge. And I was able to get a replacement seal in a nearby shop, but it was still a pain. Plus, I stupidly drove to the wrong location when we went to get the replacement seal, so actually obtaining the seal was far more arduous than it could have been. But yeah, I got the part I needed. I gave my car an oil change because I needed to, empty the oil anyway to get to the gasket. And then I just kind of finished replacing the gasket once it got dark. The really sucky part about the whole endeavor, though, was that it was my first time working in the snow, which means my pants got actually soaked, and also my legs got very, very cold. Because at least when I was hiking, like, you're still moving, but you're not moving when you're under a car. You're just sitting there. So yeah, very cold. Once it got dark, I called it quits for the day because I couldn't do anything, and so I watched an anime with Grace. And then with the remainder of the day, I decided it would be good to make an AMV from this part of the new Holland song I'd found. And I actually thought it went pretty well. It took me a few hours, but it's, I think pretty decent. It's only like 40 seconds long, but I think I did okay. So if you want to watch that, you can watch it on my YouTube channel. The next day, I went out and tried to finish my car, and I found out that my car had fallen over. Now, it turns out that if you put jack stands on gravel, that's a bad idea because gravel is not stable. So in the night, they apparently just fell over. But conveniently, they fell over in the direction of the wheel that I still had on, so nothing was actually damaged. However, if they'd fallen the other way, my whole left side axle would have been busted. I would have done a huge repair. So I'm super grateful that happened the way it did. But yeah, life lesson: jack up your car on something solid, e.g., not gravel. Anyway, after remedying that situation, I then worked on my car till 3 p.m. before I finally finished everything and actually got it put together and installed all that stuff. And there's still this inexplicable burning exhaust smell coming from my engine that has intensified since the repair, but I don't know where it's coming from. So I'm just gonna pretend it's fine. I did put a carbon monoxide detector in my car though, just to prevent my accidental death. So yeah, just in case the exhaust leak and I'm gonna get poisoned. So yeah, we'll worry about that later, or never, whichever comes first. After I fixed my car, I did an anime quiz binge. I did an anime binge and found a new anime that was actually pretty darn high quality. I then worked on my second popper deck after that and proceeded to read a philosophy article before going to bed. The next day, my car was fixed, and so I didn't have to stress about that, which was really nice. So I had quiet time again. Yay! And then after the quiet time, I did philosophy till my brain broke and therefore needed a break. And I will tell you that event manifold, space-time, and gauge freedom are very confusing. Thus, my brain was properly exhausted. I then went over to the Jameses and got properly crushed by Joe's popper deck. And from there, I went rock climbing with Benj and Caleb. And it was reassuring to know that due to my rock climbing previously, I actually had improved to the degree that Caleb was only slightly better than me at rock climbing, which was kind of cool to learn. Then, as soon as rock climbing ended, I went straight from there to Katie's house where I met with Liam and Katie, obviously. And her mom taught us how to make fancy meat sauce and meat, which actually tasted so good. So I'm super glad she taught us that skill. We then played some games of this Civilization. It's not that I don't know, it was a board game, but it was like Civilization, but for a board game. And I can't remember his name. And then we called it a night. And then I did a bit of anime watching before going to sleep. The following day was just house chores and stuff, because we planned to leave for Wyoming to hang out with the Macy's at midnight, since, it was New Year's and we didn't want to, miss the party, so we were going to stay in Colorado till midnight. Thus, the morning was spent cleaning, so we'd have a nice house to come back to, and so after 3 hours of that, I then went over to the house that Charlotte used to rent, but she's gone now. I don't know if I mentioned that before. And then I painted that listening to Pints of Aquinas for 3 hours, so it was just all work. It was nothing fun happened then. I did learn a lot about the Marian dogmas, though, so that was a good experience. Then, as soon as that finished, my family, save Ben, drove over to the Myers for the New Year's party, which was pretty great. We got to play some Magic there. Benji and I fought in some table tennis, and it was a good time with good food. So, good things overall. That is, of course, how we ended our midnight time. When the clock chimed, we did swiftly move and mount our mechanical beast and began our trek to Wyoming. Grace started off driving, and there were some conversations that happened during her drive, but pretty soon everyone kind of just like pseudo slept, myself included. I did, however, get to listen to my instrumental music while I pseudo slept, and that was a very deeply enjoyable procedure. I did end up driving at 4 in the morning, however. That was when my shift came unto me, so that was not massively pleasant, but it was necessary, so it was a worthy action. Then around 5:30 in the morning, I finally reached the Macy's house, and we were all just like, we're crashing, because that's what you do when you've been awake for that long. And then I slept till like 11 in the morning, and I actually got some decent sleep, so yeah, all things considered, good time. We then interrupt this program for some context, and by we I mean now I, because I am reading, and there is no we. I'm going to provide you context. You ready for this? See, it's kind of like a family tradition to hang out with Macy's once a year. I used to go camping with them. We used to all go camping with them. But it's kind of grown more and more comfortable as time goes on. Like, it was from camping, and then it's like glamping, and then it's like, you know, cabin in the backwoods and so forth. And yeah, it's just gotten nicer and nicer. And so there's kind of like this mode of being with the Macy's. One might say a Macy mode. And I kind of enter into it whenever we hang. So it's not like I'm radically different or anything. It's just like I kind of put everything aside and focus on, you know, doing pointless and trivial things. But when I'm in Macy mode, they don't feel pointless or a waste of time. Rather, they feel like exactly what I should be doing. So it's pretty pleasant. Thus, for that reason, being with Macy's is always pretty relaxing because it's like my only job is to relax. So yeah, nice. So anyway, that tangent aside, I had breakfast and then played some Unstable Unicorns with Amelia and Eliana, and I realized now that I used to really like Unstable Unicorns because it's like a simplified version of Magic. Each unicorn card is different, you take turns playing unicorn cards, your unicorn cards can interact with other unicorn cards, and you know, you have like a hand size, and you play down unicorns until people have 7 unicorns in their stable. But now that I've encountered Magic, it's kind of like Unstable Unicorn cards. Sorry, it's kind of like Unstable Unicorns is a pitiful excuse for a wannabe of Magic. So yeah, that was less fun by comparison. By comparison! Then partially because I realized this, and partially because I could, I then proceeded to teach the girls how to play Magic. And I think Amelia was the only one who really got it. I mean, Grace and Elia seemed to understand it, but they didn't like it by any means. And their understanding was punctuated with numerous incomprehensible fits of girly laughter. Which I promise you, there was nothing funny. They were both like staring at a wall, and then burst out laughing. And I actually do not understand. The complex infrastructure knows the female mind. Like, it makes no sense to me why they did that. But regardless, everyone seemed to get it, and Amelia got it really fast. We then, for lack of better options, watched the first Twilight movie, and yes, I know what I just said. But I can honestly say, aside from my anti-romantic bias, it was a garbage movie. Like, trash actors, rubbish plot, and very clearly low budget. Like, really bad movie. I don't know if I've seen... I probably have seen a worse movie. It was very bad. And I do not know why Joe liked that movie. After that was... after that, nothing was really happening. So I watched some more anime. I was then working through this certain anime called 86, which is pretty good. But the sad thing was, like, it had the potential to be great, but it just turned out to be good. And so I was like, oh. But anyway, after that, we had tacos and vodka, and yes, I did drink some vodka. Granted, a trivial amount, but it's kind of a rite of passage of the Macy's family, and I didn't feel anything, so, you know, I didn't, like, get buzzed or anything like that. However, the green sauce on the tacos was fantastic. Do you remember those really good burritos I mentioned way back with the eating industry thing that I ate like 10,000 of instead of actually talking to my employers? Yeah, it turns out I really like green sauce. That stuff is the best, and anything with green sauce is now my favorite. So I ate like 4 tacos, about like probably the equivalent of like 2 keto burritos, something like that, and I was very full at the end. That night, also part of being in Macy mode, Amelia and I had a very deep conversation, which I thought was very good. We talked for like 3 hours or so before the girls came up, and the quality of the conversation just like plummeted from the sky like a shot down airplane. It was bad. The matters we talked about after that point were super trivial. It kind of hurt my soul. But regardless, until that point, it was a really good conversation. Once they came about, I stuck around for like another 45 minutes and just mostly listened because I have no comment on how hot such and such an actor is, or this dude's muscles, or how much guys work out. The amount of guy talk, man, it was high. The answer is high. Anyway, I was like, well, after 45 minutes of that, I'm going to call it a night. So I went to bed around 1. And that was the day. The next day, less happened. The girls did like some photo shoot and tried to look all beautiful, and I was like, I'm not doing that. So I did find my own entertainment. I tried to play some of my favorite .io games, but it turns out that if you do not use it, you lose it. And while I used to be good, I now very much suck. And that's not a feeling I enjoyed, so I stopped feeling that way because I stopped playing. However, eventually we did all go ice skating, and it was very convenient because on the particular day we were out there, the ice skating rink was free for this section of time. And yeah, we did that. Ice skating is like basically rollerblading. You can spin easier, which is kind of weird, and there's like this weird wobbling phenomenon I experienced. But otherwise, it was basically the same. By the end of it, I was rollerblading, false. I was ice skating as well as I rollerblade. However, the fact that the ice skates were blade-like did, in fact, make it so that I had a bit of trouble originally. It was also the case that Oh, I didn't say that correctly. However, the fact that ice skates were blade-like did very little to ease my sense of overwhelming monotony, as we just went in circles and circles and circles and circles and circles. So eventually I was like, I need to do something because I'm so bored because I've just gone in circles at least 60 times here. And so I struck up a conversation with Amelia to pass the time. And it wasn't like a particularly good conversation, but it was mildly interesting. For dinner, we went out to Mexican food. Oh no, stop that. No. That might come back. And yep, that was it. I mean, okay, not quite. We went to Mexican food. We went back home. We played this game of like action and sounds. We were trying to guess the words or whatever. And then my parents and us and the Macy's parents all just kind of joined in for 2 rounds of that. Okay, I'm sorry. You need to perish. I will snooze you for an hour. That's a notification on my phone. Don't worry about it. Okay, where was I? Oh yeah, we played the guess a word game, and it was decently fun. Mostly because I think all the parents were somewhat intoxicated. But we don't need to talk about that. Yep, we then went down. Well, actually, I finished my anime that turned out to be just good, not great, which is sad. And then we went down and watched Free Guy all together as the kids. And it was like, okay, it was a cool concept, but kind of meh executed in my opinion. And went to sleep. After that, that was the end of our trip to the Macy's. And so we just spent the next 8 hours driving back, because it took an extra, 2.5, because there's a bunch of snow on the roads. So, yeah. The whole trip back, I listened to music and podcasts. That was pretty nice. And once I got home, I talked to Alan and Majesty of Reason via their respective platforms, aka Discord and Messenger. And then I also started reading Majesty of Reason's book, which he gave me a free PDF copy of, which I'm very grateful for, because otherwise the cheapest I could have got it was $70. So yeah, to round up the night, I did that, and then I did a bit of Beat Saber before watching some anime. The following day, I had a quiet time in the morning, which was good. I then proceeded to go to my shift, where I had asked a coworker to cover for me, because I had idiotically told her I needed her to cover my shift the day I went to go to my shift, not the next day, which is when I need her to actually cover my shift. So that was deeply embarrassing, because I showed up and I'm like, hey, I'm here for work, and she's like, you were supposed to be gone for work. And I'm like, no, you must have misread that, and that's actually what I told her. So, yeah, yep, she then went home because she felt bad, and I felt even worse because she then lost the shift that she wanted to have. And it was horrible. It was a mortifying mess. Anyway, I did make it to that shift, and then I talked to Alan via Discord. I then watched some anime and did it with the fam before making some very poor decisions driving with basically non-existent visibility, but I didn't want to wait for my car to heat up and to get the frost off the inside of my windshield. So, yeah, I didn't get punished for it. I didn't crash, even though I did hit a curb. Anyway, after that, I caught up with Noah and watched more anime with the family, and then Alan and I talked a bit before I went on a midnight run. The next day, I woke up early and drove straight to the airport with one very significant stop to get a Wendy's God Burger for breakfast. I then picked up Ben from the airport and introduced him to the God Burger, which I also got a second God Burger at that point in time, and he gave it an 8 out of 5. It's a pretty good rating, especially because Ben's like a burger connoisseur. I'm telling you, these Wendy's burgers are solid. Thereafter, he told me about all the New Zealand things he did, and this on our drive home. And because he hadn't finished by the time we made it home from the airport, we decided to chill at Alley Cat for another hour or so I could hear it all. And that was really great. And I'm not going to lie, though, I definitely did feel a bit jealous after the end of it, because I was like, that sounds like a fantastic time. I then ate dinner with the family plus Justin Sowers, because he was here to hang with my dad. And then, after responding to some things Joe said, I did make another AMV, for which I shall include a link in the doc, not obviously in the recording. The next day, I began with some good old quiet time. And, yeah, that was good. But then again, I did go to work where I wasn't supposed to, so that was not good. See, the first time you can kind of pass it off as like an airhead move, where you're like, oh, my bad, this is atypical of me, I don't usually do this. But then when you do it the second time, like a day after, you're like, oh, and you feel very dumb. So yeah, I made sure to go home this time and not make my coworker go home, because it was their shift by all rights. And they were willing to do it, but I was like, no, I'm not doing this twice. And yeah, not gonna lie, it took me a bit to get over that second time. So, once I got home, I was like, I need to take my mind off this. So I went to Joe's place and played Magic Till 6. I then went on a drive and prayed some, during which I almost hit a car because they had a headlight out and I did not see them as I was turning into the lane, so that was scary. But I did not hit a car, so that was good. Therefore, once I got home, I watched some anime with Grace. Not therefore, thereafter. And this anime was garbage, by the way. This anime had like a scene where a dude ate for 5 minutes. 5 minutes. There was no significance to it. No tie into a greater story. It was just like we want to see this guy eat. It was I can't. Plus, there's like at least 10 minutes of screen time spent explaining how to play shogi with these garbage cat animations. Like if I showed you it, you'd be like, "Oh, why, Alex? Why have you subjected yourself to pure torture?" And I would be like, "I really don't know." So yeah, it was bad. But regardless, that's how I ended my conscious waking hours. The next morning, I went on a very slow and pitiful run, but I did nevertheless run. I then filled out some stuff to accept a $2,000 scholarship, which I received, and I'm very grateful for because money is great. And then I went on a walk listening to music before watching some more of my garbage anime. Then I sat in for a family talk where Dad's relationship with the first was discussed, because Ben had been in New Zealand and he talked with the first, and so he's like, "Dad, we should talk about this." And that was really good, by the way. I'm really glad that that talk was had because there's been a lot of miscommunication about the situation, and after hearing it all, I feel like there's a good chance that the relationship can be healed because it was largely just miscommunication, not actually like enmity and stuff. Ben also got some gift from New Zealand, and I got this like creepy, stare into your soul Maori face shirt, which is great, and it was good to have Ben back. Otherwise, once that ended, I decided to make yet another AMV, but this one to a sad song, and I think I did pretty well. And that was my night. The next day, Alan and I met at Panera, and we talked for like 5 hours around the Environmental Learning Center area. We went on a walk, just kind of went in circles. And then I got a Wendy's burger and went on a drive with Joe. And I'm telling you, Wendy's should pay me to advertise their bacon pub burgers. Like, I'm already doing it. I feel like I should get compensated for how much I'm promoting their business. They're just that good. Anyway, I went to drive with Joe, and then I got to talk with him, and that was great. And then we went back to his house and played some Magic. Once that concluded, I called Michael very briefly, and then I watched some more of my garbage anime with Grace before going to bed. The next morning, I went on a much less pitiful run, and I talked with Dad as I ran. I didn't do great, but I didn't do garbage, so at least I tried hard. That's all that matters, and I exhibited virtue. I then did quiet time before getting started on some philosophical papers I've been working on for like basically 5 hours straight, and basically filling my entire day with since then. I then helped Dad paint before watching a video by Lady McGrew, which I personally found kind of unimpressive. And then I went to a whiteboard fight with Alan, which for like 2 or so hours about the proper way of intellectual inquiry, which was very good. And here's a whiteboard for that if you want to see them, which I'm sure you don't. But whatever, I want to see them. Finally, Ben and I got talking, and we decided it'd be really fun to watch some old Phineas and Ferb videos with the family, and we were very right. It was very funny. That show is actually great. Legit timeless. As for yesterday, I worked on philosophy papers until like 1, ate some food, and then worked on the same philosophy paper until like 3, and then helped Dad pay for an hour, and then worked on the philosophy paper for like 2 more hours interspersed through our activities. So a lot of philosophy papers. We did Tuesday night stuff, which was great. Rawl, Caleb was there, because he's back now, and all that jazz. It was good. I then finished the paper at like 12:30 at night, and I'm pretty happy with it. Now I just have to write like 6 more. Woo! Yep. And that is a very lengthy life demo. Concluded and done. It entails the totality of finals week and most of break. That's what I did. And I'll talk to you all next time. Not long. It was a long, hard journey. I'm just going to let it get to 80. Okay, that's it.